Okay, so full disclosure, I haven't exactly been playing this game as religiously as I did in the past. That's probably the main reason it took so damn long to make this video. Well, that and real world obligations like work and family and friends and other video games that I find way more entertaining. It's funny because after giving it some thought, I think the main reason I finally had the motivation to make that Pokemon Unite video about Slowbro is because I was just really eager to talk about how frustrating this game is and finally air out some of my problems with it. That video had way more complaining than I originally intended, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I just had a lot more interest in ranting about all the things I hate about Pokemon Unite instead of discussing what little good there is. Speaking of that Slowbro video, a lot of people watched it. Real people watched it and commented and liked it and subscribed and said, hey, I want to see more of this. So, goddamn, I really appreciate that. So, that's what this is. This is my follow-up to that video. Like I said, I've sort of distanced myself from Pokemon Unite over the past few months. I'll hop on the game once every couple of days to just play a few matches, maybe try out the new Pokemon, or just sort of see where the game's at. Not much has really changed. Very minor tweaks and touch-ups. Oh, we do have the Pokemon Unite 2-year anniversary event, which offers Mewtwo as a free Pokemon. This has been handled literally exactly the way I would have expected. They tied Mewtwo to this event so that you could play a bunch of matches and unlock him for free. Or you can pay an obscene amount of real-world money to get him early. And if you do get him early, guess what? He's the most overpowered Pokemon in the game. By a lot. Yeah, it's the literal exact same situation as Zacian. Release a free Pokemon at a ridiculously overpowered state with the option of obtaining it early, if you don't mind spending the extra $20. Yes, that is not an exaggeration. Both Zacian and Mewtwo cost roughly $20 to play on day one. That's the only way to get this broken cheat code that other players simply have to wait for. The thing is, you can't be that upset, because you still can get it for free. You just have to wait 2 weeks. Oh, but don't be mistaken, I actually misspoke, because you can't just simply wait. You have to grind the stupid daily missions to unlock Mewtwo, and the only way to grind these missions is by playing the game every day. And if you do decide to play the game, then you're practically guaranteed to run into multiple Mewtwo players who decided to skip the grind and just pay the $20 fee to unlock him. So, even though you might have decided not to pay that $20 yourself, you still have no way of avoiding him in almost every game you play because this fucking... It's just so transparent. It couldn't be more painfully obvious that Timmy is intentionally releasing these broken Pokemon for the sole purpose of getting people to spend their money. Clearly it works, because I see a lot of people doing just that. But good God, do they have no shame? A quick disclaimer, I am not criticizing the players who are using Mewtwo. The goal of the game is to win, and if he helps you win, then it's a valid strategy. You can't blame players for exploiting broken strategies. But you can blame the developers for allowing those strategies to exist in the first place. And to reiterate a key point from my last video, yes, a draft mode would absolutely solve this issue. If each team could ban just one Pokemon, then it would be way easier to accept when these broken characters are released. But alas, we're still waiting. And I'm 99.9% sure the only reason they still refuse to add drafts to ranked is, again, because money. Why would people spend money to buy an overpowered cheat code if they can't even use it in the ranked competitive mode? Pokemon Unite is still very frustrating. They actually released an emergency patch for Mewtwo a lot quicker this time around compared to how long it took them with Zacian. But it didn't do that much. Yeah, Mewtwo is more balanced, but from what I've seen, he's still the best Pokemon in the game. So, whatever. This is just the way it is. You can tell that most Unite players are just numb to it at this point. Moving on. Let's reel it in for a second and talk about something a little less egregious. Power creep. This is present in almost all competitive games, especially MOBAs. When a video game's been out for a while and has to constantly add new content, then there's always the challenge in making that new content interesting. I'm not well versed in League of Legends, but I know for certain that this game has the same issue. It's been around for years and is consistently adding new characters. How do you make people buy these characters? Give them a unique mechanic that no one else has? Yeah, that could work. Combine mechanics from two different characters into one. Yes, you could do that. Or you just blatantly make the new character a better version of an existing character. I mean, yeah, people will buy that. This is not just a thing in MOBAs, by the way. Take a look at a fighting game like Smash Bros. In Smash 4, the top two characters were both released at the very end of the game's content cycle. And Smash Ultimate? Again, the DLC characters seem to dominate competitive play and have mechanics that make them undeniably stronger than most of the base roster. This really shouldn't be surprising though. If you want to get people to buy new characters, especially with their own real-life money, then yeah, you want to add some incentive. I would prefer that they just try to make something unique, and that may be the intention most of the time. But there's no mistaking that these often end up being the best characters in the game. Pokemon Unite has been out for 2 years, and yeah, power creep has definitely arrived. Let's start by taking a look at Snorlax. This was the quintessential tank when Unite first came out. Extremely bulky, great crowd control, and relatively easy to use. You'd see him all the time in competitive play, as he was a perfectly viable option and fit his role perfectly. But how are they going to get us to buy these new tanks, some of which are twice as expensive as Snorlax? Alright, so Trevenant. Let's give him similarly strong, if not better, crowd control, while also giving himself healing properties that make him way harder to kill. And to top it off, let's crank up his damage output so he can outdo almost all all-rounders while simultaneously tanking more damage than the defenders. Yeah, that'll work. Umbreon. Okay, yeah, let's give him some insane damage output as well. Make it about just as bulky, and, yeah, I don't know, make it a fucking healer while we're at it. Yeah, why not? And now, wouldn't you know it, barely anybody is playing Snorlax now, and would rather spend twice the in-game currency to use the new defenders instead. Well done, Pokemon Unite. How about we take a look at who is, in my opinion, the coolest top tier in the game? Lucario. Now, I say top tier because this guy dominated the competitive scene for the entire first year of Pokemon Unite. They'd tweak the balance all they wanted, they'd nerf him, they'd buff him, and it never seemed to matter. He was consistently considered one of the strongest characters in the game.
Lucario's S tier, it's always been S tier, it's always going to be S tier. Lucario's S tier, always has been, always will be. One of the best Pokemon of the game, solo, duo, trio, competitively.
While you generally want the meta to shift around and change constantly with no character being at the top for too long, I honestly didn't mind all that much with Lucario. He was particularly fun to watch and had a very high skill ceiling that made it hard not to respect the players who were really good with him. There was a period where everyone was playing the power-up punch close combat build, which was admittedly pretty lame. It was basically just a one-shot kill against almost all characters, and since Slow Smoke was also buffed at the same time, it made it practically impossible to avoid. Pretty dumb, honestly. But Extreme Speed has always been sick as hell. It is the definition of high-risk, high-reward gameplay. Anytime you hit a different target with Extreme Speed, the move will instantly reset and allow you to use it again. Good players can combo this move like nobody's business, and deal huge damage in the process. But if you miss, then instead of an instant reset, you're stuck on a 9-second cooldown, which is a death sentence in most cases. It's honestly really cool, and makes it hard not to be impressed with players who master this playstyle. Obviously, it's very strong in many situations, but it's far from a free win. You have to be playing at a very high level to give this character justice. And even at a high level, there's still lots of counterplay. Now, I'm not actually upset that Lucario has finally been dropped from the meta. It was only a matter of time, and most people are very happy to have a break from his reign. Although, seeing him at the very bottom of win rates for a period of time was pretty tragic. Again, this is a very high skill ceiling Pokemon. It's the type of character you want players to be rewarded with for playing. But my real problem is that Lucario falling from the meta has way less to do with nerfs to his gameplay or new strategies being used to counter him. Instead, it really is just generic power creep. Let's just introduce a bunch of new broken all-rounders with way more health recovery, higher damage, better mobility, and straight up stronger and way easier versions of Lucario's moves. Urshifu's first moveset consists of a dashing move to close in on opponents and a strong strike that deals huge damage. His second moveset is more combo heavy and has him dashing around the screen all over the place, with the cooldown being shortened every time he hits an opponent. Sound fucking familiar? It's Lucario, but better. In Urshifu's case, the punishment for missing surging strikes is way less severe than missing an extreme speed, and the damage from Wicked Blow is way crazier than close combat, and has a far easier time securing objectives since it's only a single strike. Now, take a look at the price difference between Snorlax and the new Defenders. Now, look at Lucario and the new All-Rounders. Again, it just could not be more obvious what they're doing here. It shouldn't come as a surprise, as this clearly is a tried and true way to get people to buy the new characters and, by extension, make more money. But that doesn't make it any less grimy and straight up boring. Now, there are actually examples of them doing new and interesting things to make us actually want the new characters that aren't just make it like an old character, but better. Scyther and Scizor are awesome. Yeah, they cost 14,000 coins, but at least it feels like there's a good reason. You're actually getting two characters that are not just different by physical design, but have dramatically different playstyles. One is a classic brawler with really good damage and sustain, while the other is more of a traditional assassin with far less bulk but strong moves that can do huge bursts of damage. It's honestly sick. How about Mew? This was busted when it first came out, but at least it's unique. Mew has a move reset mechanic that allows it to completely change its moveset multiple times within a match. With 6 different moves to choose from, this allows for a lot of player expression and variety. It's not just ridiculously strong like Zacian, but actually has a playstyle unlike any other character. The 15,000 coins price point feels way less egregious here with how original Mew's gameplay is. And listen, I know he gets a bad rap, but I'll say it. Sableye is a cool Pokemon. Definitely took a lot of balancing to make him feel fair, but I like what they did here. You could see it as a simple progression of Greedent and Crustal's archetype, of being extremely fast and annoying and excelling at roaming around the map, scoring goals, stealing farm, etc. But Sableye is still very different. He's not nearly as bulky and focuses a lot more on disruption and crowd control. Run in, throw out some moves to stun the enemy, then turn invisible and run away. It's definitely bizarre, and I understand why a lot of people would absolutely hate it, but at least it's different. Then you got dudes like Buzzwole. Yeah, he's overpriced, but even after being out for a year, he's still not overpowered, and his moveset is just his bitch ass. Oh my lord. Oh shit. This one too. Watching the developers actually make something unique at the cost of being potentially overpowered or underpowered is a hell of a lot cooler than making something that costs an absurd amount of money that isn't unique at all. Pokemon like Zacian and Mewtwo are just generically overpowered and overpriced. This game can be so much better! Sometimes they actually make something new and exciting and trick me into thinking that I love this game and I want to keep playing. But something always halts that enjoyment. The abysmal matchmaking, the god-awful character balance, the blatant attempts to suck whatever money they can out of their relatively small player base. It's such a bummer, dude. MOBAs are an extremely popular genre, and Pokemon is the most popular media franchise to ever exist. This should be easy. There is no reason why this game shouldn't have 10 times the player base it currently does. I'm a big Pokemon fan. A lot of my friends are also Pokemon fans, but only like 2 of them play Unite. A lot of fans know it exists, and many of them have tried it out, but barely anyone sticks around because there are too many damn problems to make this game worth getting invested in. It's also very difficult to recommend because I have too much decency to lie to people and say, no, yeah, it's a good game, you should try it out, come play with me, it'll be fun. There were a handful of comments on my Slowbro video arguing that he is definitely not a hero and is actually part of the problem with Pokemon Unite. Honestly, yeah, that's just true. It's wild that this game has a tank with the most busted ult in the entire game, and that is somehow worthy of praise. That really should speak volumes of how embarrassing this game's balancing is. It's not a lost cause. There is clearly a lot of love put into this game. The core gameplay is fun. The animations are great, and some of the mechanics that they introduce are really creative and interesting. I just know that there is some greedy corporate bastard at the top who's in charge of most of the decision making and is way more interested in finding ways to exploit the game's small player base instead of allowing the developers to make Unite the best game it can be and craft an experience that is worth recommending. I'm no expert on anything, really. I'm just some asshole who figured out how to upload videos to YouTube. But I feel pretty confident in saying that this game would turn a far bigger profit if they did just that. Focus on making Pokemon Unite as good as it can be. Actually try listening to your fans. Give us a draft mode in Ranked to help keep the game interesting and help compensate for these horrible balance patches. Stop giving us horrible balance patches that buff characters who are already overpowered and ignore characters that need changes. And if you are gonna drop a character that is only available with real-world currency for 2 weeks, then maybe don't make them the best character in the game. So we can all at least pretend you don't hate your player base. What else? Oh yeah, maybe nerf Rayquaza. Or add a capture point so that every match doesn't feel like a coin flip at the end of the day. And maybe stop matching people up against players that are 2 or 3 ranks higher. And stop letting duos and trios get matched up against 5 stacks. I understand that this might result in longer load times, but I'd rather have that than be thrown into a game that is borderline unwinnable. Give us these basic changes that nearly every popular MOBA on the market already has, and that the majority of fans have been asking for well over a year. It sounds so obvious, but it's clearly not what they're doing right now. I swear, if they really started trying, people will respond to it. The competitive scene would grow, people would share it with their friends, and we'd be a hell of a lot more interested in paying for Pokemon Unite's shitty $10 a month subscription service if we actually felt confident that this game had a future. As it stands, this game is a dumpster fire, with 1 or 2 little nuggets of gold somewhere hidden within that no one can see, because they can't ignore the flaming inferno that this game clearly is. Please, fix it. I just want to play my silly Pokemon game without feeling the need to go on a 15+ minute rant about how much I despise it. Please, Pokemon Unite. I believe in you. No, I don't.